Hey everybody, Dave Whitmarsh here, Whitmarsh Consulting Group. We're going to have a quick run through of a Clearview Work Suite and talk about how to find your true cost of ownership when it comes to recruitment and onboarding. So, understanding your true cost of ownership. So, some of the um, I'm just going to read some quick notes that I found. I'm sure most of the people understand this, but PwC and ADP did a study on total cost of ownership and say that 50% of the total cost comes from hidden cost. G2's done a fair bit of research on it. 78% of the firms calculate deeper costs than just licensing. 5% only based on their decisions off subscription fees. 17% only factor in human support in the evaluation. 63% say switching is feasible, but often time and resources make the decision making process or put it off. And then Gardner says 84% of HR software buyers face implementation costs exceeding expectations. And then the random quote that I found, unable to figure out where it came from, was 30% of HCM buyers regret the decisions on evaluation and implementation costs. So we have two people going to be on today. My job's pretty much done. Shane's going to be taking over in a second. Shane's the president and CEO of Strategic Business Solutions. His email's there. Also, anywhere you're seeing this, just if you go to the body of the description, you'll see how to contact Shane or myself, and I am the CEO of Whitmarsh Consulting Group. So I'm going to ask everybody to stay on mute. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and then we'll be able to answer those, or I'll ask you to unmute depending on what that question may be. So, Shane, go ahead, take it over. Show us what you got today.
Yeah, so I came on camera just to say hi and introduce myself to everyone, but I'm going to turn that off and jump right into the video or into the demo. So let me see, Dave, if I can share. Hopefully I can. Just confirm you can see what I've got up here.
Got it.
Okay. So I am going to go over to our total, what we call a total cost of ownership report, and just talk about that for a minute. And kind of knowing that this was going to be specifically about recruiting, you can see that that's the only pillar that I activated in this study for the discussion today. But
Just one
one of the
second, Shane. I should also say, in case you're not familiar with that terminology, when Shane says a pillar, he also has this data on time and labor, HR, admin, benefits, compensation, learning, performance, and
That's
payroll.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So on the right side of my page are all of the pillars that could be activated in a study, and so there are two primary sections that you're looking at here today. On the HCM side, we could evaluate payroll, time and labor, HR, benefits, recruiting, comp, learning, and performance. On the finance side, we could evaluate general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, budgeting and forecasting, and tax management. We could have all of these active and have pillars, surveys being collected through this organization on every one of these. We could do just a core HCM, which would be payroll, time, HR, and benefits, maybe, or we could come in like we have for the case of this and just do standalone recruiting and onboarding. So we're able to go into these organizations and assess a lot of things, but the focus of this call was to talk about recruiting, so we'll kind of stay with that. Which makes sense because everything we do kind of follows a similar methodology, which I'll get into now. I'm actually using our total cost of ownership report for this demo. So if we were presenting this to an executive team, we would be telling them that we looked at recruiting and onboarding. All of the rest of these things were turned off. The total cost for that area is $2,120,439. Based on the data that we collected. And then this is kind of the recipe of information. I mean, when we say we're going to go in and do a total cost of ownership study, that should probably prompt in the mind, well, what does that mean exactly? I mean, what are you going to look at to determine my total cost? So if we just kind of focus on this section for a minute, for us, when we collect total cost, we look at 3 buckets of labor. So the first one would be this processing labor, and that's going to be, um, you know, largely the recruiting team in this case, any of the recruiters, any of the recruitment managers, anybody that's involved in the recruiting process. Maintenance would be any IT people who are supporting the recruiting system or helping it to integrate to other things on the back end, doing help desk work, doing custom reports. They could have an HRIS label or an IT label, but we want to understand kind of what the cost of supporting that application is. Field labor would be managers and employees of the organization and what they need to do to interact with this recruiting system. So if I'm a manager, what do I have to do to interview? Get candidates, open up a rec, manage that, handle moving expenses, all those things that can potentially touch recruiting. What do I have to do, and how easy is my job as a manager to do that with the system that you provide? Likewise, the employees, a new hire, what do I have to do to get onboarded? How easy is that process? So forth, so on. Then we have in the middle of the page, the non-labor items. Let's talk about this bottom one first, which is the maintenance non-labor. That's going to be everything associated with the recruitment platform, less the IT people that we've already captured over here. So, server cost, disaster recovery and backup. Maybe we have this thing on a third-party hoster with IBM or something like that. There's probably some licensing fees that we pay or an outsourcing fee that we pay to that supplier. So it's just getting our hands around all of those costs. The processing non-labor are kind of getting to the brick and mortar building costs, lease, appreciation, water coolers, printers, desks, furniture, all the things that we need to pay for there. So we catch those in those areas. Then in this other category, outsourcing fees, I kind of refer to those as the different partner groups that we might have in these different pillars. So keeping it on point with recruiting, we could have, somebody that does our drug screens and background checks. We could have somebody that does some testing, as part of that recruiting process. We probably have a handful of web-based job boards that we pay for, like LinkedIn and, Indeed and who knows what. But there are costs there that we have in the arena that, our partners that we pay to help us do certain things. So that helps us get our costs on that. Risk and opportunity, while we're doing these assessments, we might as well be smart and look for low-hanging fruit. So in the risk and opportunity area is where we're looking for, penalties that have been paid to state and federal agencies for non-compliance, banking fees, anything that we've done that's kind of gotten ourselves in trouble from a compliance standpoint, error rates, how well are we integrating back to other systems to push new hire information into the new payroll system, that kind of stuff to get people onboarded. Just a variety of things. Are we taking advantage of WOTC tax credits in the U.S. if we're hiring people, and are we capturing that demographic information properly at the point of hire, screening all those candidates properly, and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of a quick overview of the structure of the data, just kind of looking at this total cost of ownership report. And then, as we report this back, obviously we have a line item for each of these things so we can see, what's the labor cost, what the non-labor cost is, all of those kind of things. And then lastly, we have the ability to benchmark. So we know their total cost of recruiting is 2 million, 120 from this number up here. We're dividing that by 8,200 employees, which means they have a per employee per year cost of about $258 to do recruiting. And then, we've done probably 25,000 of these studies, so we can look at this and say, well, here's, 348 companies that are their same size. Here are 117 employees in manufacturing like they are. And here are, 79 companies that use Oracle to do recruiting, and what that average cost is. So just kind of helps us understand what's happening from a total cost standpoint. At this point, just so everyone is aware, this really doesn't have anything to do with ROI or positioning vendors. This is just helping the organization understand what their costs are, where they're spending that money, so that they have an idea of the spend. Question then becomes why? Why do we care about total cost of ownership? And there are several good answers. The first one, how do you build a return on investment that says, I'm going to save X dollars in labor or X dollars in licensing fees, or, I won't pay for this technology service anymore. How do I articulate that in a return on investment if I don't know what those costs are to begin with? I can't say I'm going to save, a portion of something if I don't know what something equals. That's the first good reason. The second good reason is because I believe in the HCM arena in particular, we're not going to get anything done unless we can convince the decision makers, the people who are, in control of those purse strings. They're simply not going to spend money unless we've got a good business case, unless we can talk to the narrative of how we're going to make the organization leaner, meaner, and more efficient, and reduce errors in the meantime, and all those kind of things that could present those positive attributes to make this a good project. So that's a second reason. I think the third reason is you should be competitive. So, if we're looking at making a change to something, hopefully we're smart enough to be looking at more than one vendor. If for no other reason, just to make them aware of the fact that they're in a competitive market. And this gives us a way to do ROI apples to apples across vendors who might be, pitching the service to you, so that you can see specifically how each one impacts that total cost once we get to the return on investment build. Okay. So now let's kind of shift gears for a minute and talk about building the ROI. So now that we have this total cost in place, the way that this information gets collected is very easy on our part. I mean, we can go out here and manage respondents and just add a new respondent, give them access to, whatever survey we want them to have. And then the system will send them a link. They click that link, open it up, and they're able to take the survey, which is going to look something like this. So first thing to notice about the survey is it follows, in terms of its construction, those sections that I talked about on the wheel. So if we're in processing labor, here I've got a recruiting manager, I've got 4 recruiters and a recruitment admin. I can see the estimated hours per week, what their annual salary is. And if I go over here and click this little button, I can actually see where they're spending their time and doing what activities. This person, because I opened up the manager, is 100%, managing department and doing administrative duties. But you can kind of go through as the data gets fed into this survey, it is automatically populating a couple of things in our system. First, it populates our total cost of ownership report that we've reviewed. The second thing that it does is it populates our calculator. So because we have up here on the survey side, the recruiting and onboarding survey activated, when I click calculator, I also have a recruiting and onboarding calculator here. For vendors that we work with routinely, we can help them create profiles. So if they have, different system sets, different services that they combine with some of the technology and so forth, we can go in and pre-configure those ROIs so that they can just very easily apply those here. And then that would do the majority of the ROI build. Or they can actually go in and build the ROI item by item and get very granular and custom, working with the vendor to do that, or with the prospect to do that. Very easy. I mean, here's all the work that's being done, that is being done by this recruiting team. We can see what the cost is. We just put our savings percentages in here, and it calculates all of that out. As that gets done, it is actually building over here on this side our ROI overview. And so this is now getting to the point where, we've collected this information, we've educated the decision makers on the costs that we have, which were this, 2,120,000. And now we're starting to tell the story. And by the way, if we invest this money on this new recruiting system, that total cost will go from 2.1 million down to 1.5, which should give us about a $584,000 ROI per year. Of that, we think 350,000 is direct or hard savings, and then we'll have another 17,000 in risk and opportunity over here on top of that, so forth, so on. And as I graduate through the report, any of these little blue numbers are hyperlinked, so I can open those up. This is, for example, the labor portion that I just pulled up. I can see, once that I've collected all of this data, I can look at this information and see exactly what this recruiting team is doing, where they're spending time doing things that are possibly manual versus, strategic, all of those kind of things. So it really helps me to digest and understand. I'm not going to wait for this to come up, but I can see, where all that is and how everything is being calculated. These are, the risk and opportunity things like new hires doing I-9 and being compliant there. Onboarding activities that will probably impact and so forth. Okay. So the last thing, Dave, that we probably want to cover is, we've been doing this for 25 years, and over the course of that time frame, I think we've done upwards of 25,000 studies. So we have a lot of data in this database that can help uh, consultants, vendors, uh, companies that are looking to make a change, really get their arms around some of the impacts that can be happening out there. So, using that data, we've created an analytic hub that we provide to our clients. I'll demo a side of that we provide to ADP. They're one of the people that we work with. But for example, a sales rep can go over here and say, "I want to run a benchmark comparison report." They can put in the name of the prospect, their name. They can go down here and say, my client is 3 to 10,000 in size. I'd like to look at comprehensive and express studies. Um, Maybe they're in healthcare, so I want to look at companies that are in healthcare, and I want to evaluate, for the sake of this, payroll time and HR. On my side, I'm trying to present and position my new Lyric product. Although for this company, they want to look at managed payroll and have us actually be the payroll department. And I know that they're on, um, I don't know, we'll say they're on UKG for payroll. Maybe they're on a homegrown system for time and for HR. Um, oh, I don't know, maybe they're, um, well, we'll just pick, let's see, we'll just stick with UKG and create our report. So just by putting in a couple of very simple filters, I'm able to get some information back that tells me, here's a summary of the three pillars that I looked at: payroll, HR, and time. This is the average ROI of those companies moving from that platform to this particular ADP platform. This is the specifics for payroll: 15 companies, healthcare, 3 to 10,000. Here's average ROI in the detail. Here's, 3 time and labor, and here's 18 HR companies. So, very compelling for the salespeople to go talk to a prospect and say, look, on the payroll side alone, there's an opportunity for me to save you $662,000 a year. If you move from what you're doing to me, I can even click into these and see all the detail underneath them, so I know exactly what different activities got offset and those kind of things. So some very, very good information in here that helps us to kind of understand what we're looking at. We also have an executive summary that gets published, and this is pretty cool because it goes out and actually takes the report that we produce using our data and then has AI kind of generate a, plain English. Here's why this is important. Here's, where the savings are coming from. Um, kind of gives you a very plain English way to understand the opportunity and why the savings are occurring at different points in the project. So, Dave, I think that's probably it. The last thing probably to mention is all of this can be exported, obviously, into a PDF that can be shared with others, whether that be a prospect if you're a vendor, or a prospect if you're a consultant, or somebody you're working with internally if you're a company doing an evaluation, whatever.
Yeah, even from the practitioners alone, Shane, they see a real big savings here because
Yeah.
if they go out to try to find this data, if they don't have the time to try to do it internally, then they go out, this could very easily creep up to a six-figure engagement.
Yeah.
And without the accuracy of what you have, and and you charge, you know, a ridiculously low amount of for these each of these pillars to get done and surveyed and gathered. So, you know, I would encourage the individual users to come in and understand what their total cost is. And you did touch on something too. When they want to make financial decisions, you have to make them based off of financial facts. And this is the closest or the only thing that I've seen that allows companies to actually do that, right? If you're going to go over and ask for, you know, a couple 100,000 or a million from your finance department and say, here's what we hope happens, or you can say, you know, for 5,000 bucks for a pillar, you can say, this is what we know, this is the way it looks, this is what our costs are, and by the way, this is how we compare in our industry.
And by the way, we've got, 50 market benchmark studies that back up our projections, which is what makes people feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to kind of put Dave's comment in check, we are, I think, pretty reasonable in terms of the way we do this. So just so everybody kind of understands our base pricing for core pillars, which would be payroll, HR, time, benefits, and recruiting. Those are $5,000 a piece. The other ones like comp, learning, and performance, we charge $3,000. Typically, to do an all-in HCM study, if we looked at every pillar, you're probably $25,000 on the high end.
Yeah.
To do it all, which
Yeah,
is a much better margin than our competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's good. Okay, so unless you have anything else, Shane.
No.
Okay, so like I said at the beginning, everybody, your emails for contact information, a Calendly link, all that good stuff will be in the description of wherever you saw this. Feel free to book a time and we'll walk you through it, answer any direct questions, because we did zip through it, but
Yeah, it's a
we'll answer
lot.
any direct questions for you and show you how you stand.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.